I'm just trying to kind of read through it, and it's very abstract, very difficult to understand.
Yeah, and from one to
I think 171 else.
Okay, so we have one time.
Yeah, and plus it doesn't seem to make sense. You know, you go, what is he saying here? And you go finally.
Is it from a written?
No, I think it's transcribed.
From a
35?
talk.
What do you think?
Well, you know, you're talking
36,
about the editing in that other book. At one time,
Is that
they
a
asked
month?
for volunteers to transcribe
More than,
from
So it's about 30.
around 1.5 maybe.
transcriptions of early
Let's do it by
talks.
30 and see, make it nice even
To a
more.
computer.
Yeah, and I was initially thinking, hey, that's something I could do. You know? So I did that, and it's a really, really interesting project. But I didn't
Let's go the way
know how
around.
much the talks are edited and they put in book form.
Yeah.
Because he would stumble over words
Oh, 30, oh,
and
sure.
revise what he says. That's what I like to watch the videos, see how it really meant instead of like polished up a little bit, you know.
But polished up a little bit is kind of nice.
Yeah, just for the
You
simplicity.
start wondering, you know,
How much did they fiddle with?
how much do they fill?
Yeah, and I also like hearing
30 days. Okay, no,
you
you
get how
oh,
he
wait a
emphasizes certain words. It's so
Oh, it's time. You're
because
right,
you
it's
know,
time.
you read about everything
Yeah.
in your head, but not
So
hearing
it's,
the expression of his voice.
time,
Let's look at this.
and,
28. Sorry, 28.
I mean, you can say,
Yeah.
you can say something really strong, and then the next thing you know,
divided by
you're saying something
12.
with a total slang.
And it's easier.
It's right here or something.
This title. And also you have to be it is.
Practice.
With the
I stole my title.
They already printed
They
it.
do this.
Yes, it's printed, yeah. I actually did it on LinkedIn after you started this. So you were first.
And
My
some
God.
mistakes.
Thieves.
Yeah,
Somebody
they
said,
have to do the 28.
Thieves.
Actually,
Actually, there's a,
Yeah.
times or thieves.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean,
I
it's
know,
always
this
this
came-
take that.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can put it in.
fine, okay, now I have this position, this must be it, this position.
Yeah.
I saw, yeah.
Yeah. Pretty well still have sensations.
But
He's talking about Christopher saying one thing, and the next thing you know, you're reading.
thighs.
Saying
That's why I
what?
say Corinthians thighs.
And he's saying something completely different. Yeah. And then we're going, you know,
Yeah, but I think it's, I have to put something else in it to, okay. Yeah.
Don't get stuck in a position.
Do you believe in this? Because that might not be.
yeah. Well, I guess he's speaking from a place that is so really unlike our thought world, you know, where everything's kind of one thing.
You know this book?
He talks about it in one.
Yes.
He talks about it in some other.
Beautiful, huh?
Huh?
Beautiful.
Don't get hung up on it.
Yeah, it's all on the excerpts, you know, many different.
Is that
That's
yours?
what you never say.
Yeah,
It's
Oh, Christian.
yeah, because it's also.
Was there one on negation? Was there one on negation?
I don't know, it's, I mean, there's so much.
It's a little bit
So small.
bigger.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is a notebook.
The earlier stuff, so you know the difference.
So.
That's a phone? Good.
Yeah,
Wow, that's a big.
But it's also
but also
useful as
functions
work study. Yeah.
it's a computer, basically.
Well, I'm sure that my journey coming up now from.
Yeah.
Yours is a smartphone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I recently got an iPhone.
Do you like
Is it
it?
like yours?
I know. I got mine just before I moved out here.
Thought of
About
saying.
4 months ago, so. And it's been this, I mean, I know the GPS, I can go down to the restaurants, I can do that, I can go.
But that's
Go
all.
on the email, online,
should ever say
It's not really awkward.
Thank you so much of all this.
It is amazing, yeah.
I'm really in awe.
Yeah.
I know.
I just bought an
For an
iPhone.
instance, you know, if you
I
want.
know the whole idea of that.
Yeah.
Isn't this
Yeah, it's the same thing. Same
I will
thing.
Make
make
sure
it
that-
smaller.
Make sure
Yeah, but
you
it's
pay
more-
attention to like
Maybe
the
because part of our
updates that you
training,
can do, like
Oh,
software
there's a
updates and
dialogue.
such.
you know, 60
Do you-
minutes chair, dude.
I have someone always remind me, but it always works out kinks in the phone, so you need to be connected to a Wi-Fi
I think that
source,
whole idea
and then you can actually update the phone to better and better and better. And it's free.
Because actually everything is fine.
You can even just call right down the store and just say,
Those are actually
I lived here like.
but it's really, it's easy just to update it. You go into settings, and then,
So, what does it mean for me in our life?
Yeah.
yeah, I got everything.
Goes to 28 days,
So
comes like 89 points.
you go to settings.
Yeah, that's why I
And then you
go
go
And he
to,
was he 90?
that time there would be like 7.
Almost.
Yeah.
That would be right, and that'd be right on the button.
it's generous.
And she's
Software update.
So I
And
did
then
like
go
a
check.
chisel.
So it says, look, my software
So they
update.
purchased it,
That's who
No,
you're
it's
so this is
And I
the
recommend that.
book that
that's
we're
the one,
supposed
yeah.
to read or something?
Actually, for me, it's actually what I'm trying to do, it's actually more to make sure that everybody can see.
Yeah.
So we have the different subjects there.
And you have one software update.
I got one.
So you have a software update. Yeah, so
Yeah, there was you were about
Gee, I read Siri or review.
So just say,
Review the movie.
Roger. Don't you know Roger?
No.
So, because he's quite strong personality.
Yeah.
So he's saying no facility actually means in the end needs a facility.
Yeah.
I love it that I can just put the question right at the very beginning.
Yeah, I
So you know,
I think you're,
I see the people coming in and out.
and see, they're always looking at relationships.
oh, so you have to,
These people are going.
so there's Wi-Fi over at the rate tree. If there's a facility, you say that you can connect that. So just, you know, if you don't, try to do that.
I know.
Oh, okay, well, I don't know.
So he's just do little changes.
Things are getting brought down.
What's already in the phone, or like work out.
So it looks a little better or
It
something.
works even better than King's.
We had two vegetables and then.
Yeah, or like works out by right there. Or it'll change like
And I think you can do that.
a certain thing you can do on the camera, for example. Like the most recent one I
Come from New
did
York and you sit
had
there.
like this
It's
another
very
option on the
process to
camera.
show.
So just like enhances it. So you don't have to do it, but it's,
But it's,
but like why not?
Yeah.
And it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like your case, where's yours?
Just at the store, it's got Otter Box.
This group is pretty
O TT.
Oh, it's at the Apple.
Yeah, and it's like this gray cover and then this whole white cover as well.
Yeah, so it's really.
It's like your Coach Knox, yeah. Very expensive. Yeah, for a cover, but if you're very expensive.
So, shall we, we're missing Munja, huh?
Yeah.
What happened to him? He was on the mountain.
The mountain's off. It's not coming down from the mountain.
He had to come down.
The law.
I was just looking at the questions, if there were any of the questions that we hadn't want to go into, or
But we have to go into the one with the heart, don't we?
The biggest one, isn't it? Was that number 11?
That's the last one.
Oh, it's the last one. Oh, that's the Yeah, we have to do that. What is it? Compassion. Okay.
I guess the question is, what is the meaning of the heart?
Oh yeah.
According to the dictionary,
Well, that's the first thing I looked it up. It's two syllables. The com, C-O-M is.
You have to find the picture of the heart in the dictionary.
That may or may not be there. But it's the word passion is an interesting word. The root word is it's the root word of patience, and suffering is the passion of the Christ. See, you think of that's the passion that it's referring to, the suffering. When he says, suffer the children to come unto me, that's the word.
Well, John, what did you have in mind with that question? I guess we're on that.
the question, actually, when I put it, was that all of these questions, all the 10 questions, how is that related to love and compassion? How are all the 10 questions that are preceding, how is that all related to love and compassion? Like if you look at, is transformation a permanent state? And how do life, love and life, relate to transformation? Then how does all of that relate to love and compassion?
I see.
What is the significance of life? And how does that relate to love and compassion? So all of these questions you can take, and I think somehow, I'm thinking somehow it's related, so that's why I want to put that in.
So we really would have to consider the other ones first, right?
That's what, or simultaneously.
Okay.
But I mean, in a way, I think we have to look at all 11 questions simultaneously.
All the questions at one time?
Yeah, I think that's what's happening now.
I think you just attached your question to everybody else's.
Yes.
That's all right. But I'm getting a lot of clarity on my own question, which is like the fact that you have to negate in order to get. It's just like in my other class, there's this thing that the self is maybe called in Rumi maybe the veil, something that prevents you from your beloved. So it's the veil, and so in order to get to the beloved, which is non-verbal, which is then you have to negate the self and negate the verbal thing, and in that case, my other questions become irrelevant in terms of what am I going to do? How should I do it? Do I do it this way or do I do it that way? Or kind of finding an answer, because and then it's just kind of crystallizing it and making it a veil again. Whereas if you negate that and just let the non-verbal energy just do it, then I think that's freedom, and that's love. I mean that's so it doesn't have, the answer doesn't have to be crystallized, and it doesn't have to be now what am I going to do? Go to psychology, give me a formula, or tell me what to do, or shall I associate it with myself with these people or that people, or what do I do? So it's all this falls apart, and it's just just this state of freedom from all this verbal chatter. Then that real thing gets done. And it is this perfume, as he said. So I don't know. I think I'm getting clear. I don't know.
Yeah. No. I like what you're saying, and I would like some when we explore these kind of things, like in here, then how would you say? So we. Like we start to understand something, start to see something. And at the same time we have a brain which is acquisitive, who wants to hold things, who wants to conquer things, who wants to create safety. Which is a mechanical process, but it's really good at it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for all our lives we have been able to bring everything into statements and bring it into that safety mechanism. So that's why if the question comes, so if what you're saying is completely clear and clean, so how can you then at the same time look, okay, but I have to make sure, I have to check, is my brain in any way putting an idea on this? Like if I use the word negation, so there's a movement which is not determined by thought, right? It's not determined by the veil that you just talked about.
Yeah.
Now, if I use the word negation, what do I mean? And that's just to see if there's are we in any way trying to, is the veil getting in there when you use it? You know what I mean? So could you unpack how are you using negation here? If we're already clear that negation is not suppression, it's not denying, it's not forgetting, it's not, so what is negation then? So how do you use the word negation?
Yeah.
Because in a way it cannot even be something active.
No.
If you say I'm not going to negate, this is what I'm going to negate, then you're trapped, because then it's a deliberate action of something. So how are we using the word negation here?
You brought the word brain there?
Brain dead.
Brain. You brought the word.
Yeah, brain, yes.
Brain. When the brain is active, are you asking, when the brain is active, how do you negate that? Bring the word. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm more saying, what Jassi was saying is that there is a movement which is not motivated by thought, right? There's an energy, you said, I think. Well, let's accept these words for the time being. And but we know that our brain, as being our security agent, as our will try to make it into an idea and then apply it.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
So that's why
when I'm away from this retreat, I said, I got it.
Yeah.
Then I again kind of like crystallize it, into an idea.
Yes.
I got an answer to all my problems.
Yes. Oh, and then tomorrow morning you wake up and your son says something to you, and then, I have to negate this. Then so we have to be really clear on what negation is, otherwise it will very easily become a new strategy, which actually is suppression, or denying, or even transcending. Condemning, yes. Or transcending, like I'm just going to ignore it for a while and then it goes over, which is all.
Yeah.
So what do we mean by negating?
Well, I think what she mentioned, negating thought, I think that's what you said.
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea I got was that would allow room for this other energy to come in.
Yes.
But I'm thinking we can't use that. We can't negate. Because it presupposes somebody that's going to do the negating.
Yeah.
Which, I think we got to forget that idea.
I know, but before we go there, we want to. So you're already putting out a really a strong concern. If somebody is going to negate, you're trapped.
Yeah.
Right. That's what you're saying.
Somebody is going to
If I am going to negate, I'm trapped.
Yeah, yeah.
But before you put that question, if there is a movement that is what is the word negation pointing at? If it's not that, if it's not I am negating.
Well, it seems like the problem that she put out there was the problem of thought being in the way. So the question, broader question is, what do we do about thought?
Mm-hmm.
And Krishnamurti is saying all the time that it's a problem, and we see it in our own lives because our brains go, chatter, chatter. And so the big question is like, what can we do? Can anything be done about thought? I think Krishnamurti says if we just understand the nature of thought, the problem will become less or go away. I don't know.
It's more complicated than than I thought. I thought I had it.
That's thought.
Yeah, I thought I thought I was like enlightened.
Yeah.
Or just like.
Yeah, no, I already don't want to donate.
Let's take a reflection.
Perhaps it leads to the point of awareness. What is awareness then? Is it someone who's being aware, or is it just awareness without choice, as Krishnaji says, which transcends somebody who's looking? It's just an awareness without the self. And in that awareness, what is seen then is just dropped. You're not doing the dropping, but it is dropped.
I think we need to look at what is the opposite of negating. Is negating a form of thought? Maybe that's the question. Because thought doesn't negate. So it's a different, like you were saying, it's closer to awareness. Awareness isn't, so the opposite, what is the opposite to mind, this is the question that comes up to my mind, what is the opposite?
Like affirm?
Negating.
Affirming?
Yes, and that's what the thought does. They're always positing. See, you hear the word posit, and to negate we think is getting rid of, and thought is always putting in, positing, putting. So if we can see that is seeing the nature of thought is the beginning of negating, No?
But it is observing, instead of awareness we can say observing, which is not observer watching the observer, but it's just observing. That state is beyond thought or beyond thinker, that observing. And what is seen in that observing is negated. There's no negator at that point, it's just negated.
Like having an insight. Huh?
Yes.
And is insight the same as thought?
Could we go back to your original thing, whatever that was? Can you remember what you were saying? When you said negating thought, what was the context of that? Do you know?
It was about my initial question about like how to live, basically. How to live, how to kind of sort out where to go, what direction to take in my life. What are the people that I'm surrounded by? What are the people I want to be surrounded by? I mean, all these like little decisions to make. And then when I heard Krishnamurti, and the thing about negation, and the fact that it just dawned on me that these are all very partial questions, and I'm just very very nervous, like a neurotic person trying to kind of find something, and then if I calmly sit back and look at all these thoughts and see that they're just little bits and pieces. I mean, if you could just negate all of that, then the big picture comes, and then that big picture has its own action, which I cannot perceive, I cannot predict right now. I cannot verbally say what it is. So I thought I got it, but then Yap asked me something.
I spoiled it for you. It's like getting a nice birthday cake and then somebody says, but there's a lot of sugar in it.
Yeah.
In yesterday's pamphlet which you gave, the talk video, in that it is there saying, not neurotic, but the other word he uses there. Schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia.
He uses that word. We don't have to use neurotic, we can use that word.
That's a stronger word.
But it's a more precise word. The schizo part is the cutting apart, making, breaking apart. Split, yeah.
But Yossi, my question was more because you saw something and you used the word negation, and I just wanted to, if you could elaborate what you're seeing when you use the word negation.
When I use the word negation?
Yeah, so you're at home, your son says something to you, and Mom, I need more money. and you can, no, I've given you everything. I've given you yesterday already. And so then, what is where does negation come in there? How does it go in? You know, what would be the step?
I mean, the conflict between me and my son, and the fact that, well, I don't get your question very well. Like my son kind of irritating me in a sense?
Yeah, something is triggered in you. It doesn't have to be your son, maybe your neighbor or your mother or whatever.
Something is irritating me and I'm in conflict with it.
Something. And so, yes, how does this relate to negation?
Okay, good.
It's the anger, for instance. The anger. I don't think that's relevant to negation, because I just, then I have to kind of sit with the anger, I guess.
Well, weren't you sort of visualizing that the fragments of this kind of neurotic action would somehow dissipate and disappear? Isn't that what you meant by negation? That somehow they would sort of fade away, and then what would be left would be this whole
action,
perception.
Yeah, and I was just trying to see. So what is how does that work with a fragment, so that we can get more clarity on it?
The fragment is I think the verbal reaction to, I guess, the thought kind of the reaction I have, I guess, if I look at the my verbal reaction, then if that kind of dissipates, then it's the feeling, I guess, of anger that stays.
Yes.
And I guess that has to evaporate. And then I think it's wholesome. Even the feeling of anger is wholesome. I mean, because it doesn't have to be hatred, it's just this you know. So there's no thought there, so the thought has been negated.
And how does that happen? The thought has been, you're making a separation between, okay, I'm feeling angry, and then I'm thinking about it, which is, I negate that. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Were you describing these different thoughts are jumping around and I should do this, no, that, and by having an awareness of that, then it kind of
Dissipate.
goes away, and then you're aware of the feeling, the anger.
It's a little bit like, yeah, I think so. It's a process, I think. It's a process. It's like writing down, you know, when you're really mad and, you know, you don't want to act out of anger, so you just write down, you know, you curse the guy and just write it out. Okay, so is that negation?
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
That could be negation, because it's the words and then you write it out and then you say, that sounds stupid of me, but anyway, it was a thought, but okay, I finished. Trash.
So it's more, I mean, are you then saying it's more not acting upon it? The negation is just not acting upon it.
Right.
And are you saying, when you're aware of these different conflicting fragmented thoughts, then when you see that, it doesn't carry on, it doesn't like build on itself?
I guess not, because then you kind of go through all of them. Maybe, I mean, like the image of writing it, like just going through all of these thoughts, and then once you're done with it, then you're clear, I guess. Not that I don't know whether you get to that state of love or intelligence, but at least I don't.
But don't get into more trouble.
You feel a kind of peace.
Huh?
You feel a kind of peace.
Yeah, at least,
The more
yeah.
mountain is climbed,
Yeah.
and you feel a kind of peace automatically.
But then I still have the question to what then is the basis for the negation? For how, I mean, you use the word negation in a certain way, which is fine, but why, from what are you negating? Because okay, then I don't get more trouble. You know, you have it's a strategy for trouble prevention, so it's actually a safety strategy. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I think I don't want to go. I mean, I'm only learning about negation today. I thought I was learning.
Yeah.
What was your question?
I forgot.
I don't think we should use negation as a strategy. That again, that would be another method.
Yeah, because in the first time you said it, you used it almost like
A method.
no. I mean, no. The first time you used it as the veil which was standing between you and God, the beloved.
The negation.
The negation, and now you're using the negation in a way, well, to get out of trouble.
Yeah.
You know, somehow it has shifted. So I was just trying. So.
I guess there are steps. I mean, at least maybe not for Krishnamurti, but for me, I mean, there's steps. I did first get out of trouble. Get
the umbrella up and then get dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling like by just exploring and putting out questions, it's more like it's like somehow like more like gathering energy for us to look at our day-to-day life, because that's where the change has to happen, right?
Yeah.
And so we make statement that, okay, hey, how is it exactly working in my day-to-day life? Because somehow that is where. So this question is not, okay, I put a question to you and you answer me, because that's irrelevant, you know. I mean,
It's theory, yeah.
But somehow that, oh wow, it's really important to look what's actually happening in these moments of conflict and in the moments of unawareness, maybe.
And
yeah. And
Full stop, as Kay would say.
You know, let's see, quite a bit of what we've got on the list has to do with transformation. And I thought that Kay said something kind of interesting about transformation, but I'm not sure I heard it right. And I think he was talking about change. And then he said, transform why, or something like that. Right now is okay. I don't know. I'm not. Does anybody else remember him saying something like, you don't have to transform?
Yeah.
That what you are right now is okay?
He said, if you don't transform now, you will be in pain tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. Yeah. If you don't do it now, inevitably you will be suffering tomorrow. That's what he said.
But I thought just before that he had said something about, you know, transformation is another thing that you're thinking would be great, but it's just another one of those things. But I guess he didn't say
Or
that.
maybe he did. I don't know.
Well, could we take up the subject of transformation? And what about that? I say that because there's a lot of transformation questions on the chart.
How can I transform? Is there?
Will we be the same after? I don't know. I guess there's a general question of what are we talking about when we're talking about transformation?
Yeah.
And I relate this to what you're saying too, because you're looking at like, how can I transform my life?
Yeah.
And I think we have a pretty big interest in this question of transformation. So what do we mean by transformation? What are we talking about?
Isn't it change?
Changing ourselves.
And, well, perhaps so, yeah. And how to go about it?
I think it's more than change, though. I think it's a complete revolutionary change, I would say. Like a mutation would be implied by transformation, not just a change from this to this. Mutation of consciousness, which Kay uses quite often. So.
Is that not the same thing? Is that not the same? Mutation, transformation?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. That
Well,
it's
the words
equivalent.
are different. Yeah. I mean, you transform electricity.
You have a
From there to
transformer.
the other. But mutation means a qualitatively different state, right?
Yes, yes. Because you have like the electrical transformers. You can transform up and you can transform down.
But I think what we're asking here about transformation is suggestive of mutation, I would say.
Yeah.
But to a different form. Or the form that you would like.
It would have to be a state where the holistic intelligence is operating, not just partial intelligence.
Maybe that's where the problem lies. The problem of change. In fact, I think Krishnamurti wrote a whole book. There was a whole book called The Urgency of Change. And the emphasis was on the urgency part. And
Yes.
and not the change, although thought always wants to do the changing without seeing the urgency.
Well, doesn't there seem to be something kind of conflict in the notion of transformation, change, and yet the way we are is got to be okay because that's the way we are. I mean, the present moment is what it is. When we say transformation, do we want something different than what is the case? I don't know. It seems to me like Krishnamurti is recommending both a change, a drastic transformation, and there's really nothing besides the way things are right now, which is perfectly okay. I realize that's not clear at all.
I think part of the problem with stating it like that is that okay seems to be an endorsement of, it's a value word. It's like, it's almost like saying, this is good,
But we would want transformation.
Could you use a different
because-
word than okay, or could you explain more what you mean by okay?
Yeah, it seems like in the film that he's talking quite a bit about how things are not okay.
All the problems.
Like that we as human beings are in a lot of trouble, both personally and collectively. And so if we would say, well, what would be the reason for transformation? It's that we're uncomfortable. And like you were saying, with your life, you're uncomfortable with it the way it is, and you want some kind of change, a transformation, let's say, in yourself. How is that, the idea of transformation in that sense? I'm just thinking as I'm talking that if we want something that is different than what we have, then we're already projecting what we want, and then we'll stay the same because what we project is going to be more of the same. So somehow we have to go about this change, this transformation in a different way.
Yeah, I think we have to start with what our discomfort is. I'm not saying I want to transform myself, but saying I'm in discomfort, I'm in sorrow, I'm in pain.
Yeah.
There seems to be some conflict. So what is this?
So what is that state? Is that what you're saying?
What is the conflict? What is the sorrow? What is the discomfort? And if we approach it that way, then there's no need to posit a transformation. I want to become transformed. We can't start like that.
Yeah.
We have to start with what we are. And we're not actually okay because we have a lot of sorrow, we have sadness,
Yeah.
we have fights with our friends, relatives, and nations fighting each other, wars. Things are not okay.
Yeah.
So how do we understand that? Perhaps if we start from that, instead of positing a transformation.
It would seem like the transformation would just be a matter of seeing what our situation is, seeing what is involved in the unhappiness, the sorrow, the frustration on a personal level.
And perhaps then we may see that all that trouble, that discomfort is caused by a state which is limited, which has to be freed. Consciousness is limited by this conditioned state, and that has to be freed and released, and then therefore that is what is called transformation. That may happen in our inquiry, but we can't start off wanting transformation. It becomes another desire.
So Jen, can I try to say, so if you look at the question 4, how can I transform? Meaning, would that, in what you were just saying, would that mean that if I am in a state of conflict and I say to myself, oh, I want to transform, I form an idea of what transformation is,
Right.
and I want to move towards that. It means will always be another projection of that same
Yeah.
self and continue, and because of
Exactly.
that continuity of that. So that the question, how can I transform, is in itself a flawed question.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
And then what you're saying is more like, well, instead of then posing the carrot, the ideal, let's look at the stick, which is our conflict, right?
Yes.
And so and that maybe the understanding of our lives as it is, maybe brings about a transformation.
That's right.
But not because...
Because we've heard that case saying that all the
Yeah.
time, transformation,
Hmm.
mutation.
Hmm.
But maybe we cannot start from that.
Yeah.
We have to start from
Where do you
we
start?
are.
Hmm.
So what if you were to approach, I mean, we're using you as kind of a guinea pig here. So what if you were to approach the things that you were talking about along the lines of what we've just been talking about? In other words, not the transformation so much as what is the situation itself. And maybe just seeing that situation would be all you'd have to do.
Exactly, yeah.
Does
And
it
that would be the negation, actually. That would be
Uh-huh.
that would be like, yeah. And then, yeah, so I don't project a transformation. I'm free of that. I stay with what is, yeah, what's
Yeah.
the problem, what is, yeah.
You were saying
And
that
then I
you
don't
were-
have to do anything, yeah.
You were saying that you were in an abusive situation, perhaps the relatives and friends were not very harmonious, easy to get along with, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that I don't, I'm not okay with like going along the same lines that I used to, so, yeah, so what
So
is
they
it that-
resisted to me.
Yeah, I don't wanna like be the good girl, I don't wanna follow, you know, I don't wanna say yes to my father even, I mean, I don't wanna, there's certain things that I wanna change. I'm not okay with certain things, so it's just deepening my understanding of what's not working for me.
And what is behind that? Not wanting to do yes, saying yes to your father or anyone else. What is distressing you about that?
It's because I make an authority out of somebody and I'm not living my own life. It's been
Is it also because you don't agree with what he's asking you to do, or it's not?
also that, yeah, and I've been like raised to kind of like obey.
That's a domination. Suppressing and dominating, that you have to do whatever I say, that's a domination. That's a myth.
And it affects all your life. I mean, it affects other relationships. When you're kind of stuck in somewhere there, but then when you see clearly and because you can't just say, okay, I'm just doing it for my father, but then because he's old and frail and okay, like, you know, he has a few, I mean, you can't do that anymore.
And that's not necessarily egocentric, I would say. I mean, you were saying that perhaps it's a very small, if you take Krishnamurti's life, for example, I mean, he negated the whole movement. He said, you know, Annie Besant, etc., everyone, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. And boom, you know.
Yeah, and it seems that, you know, saying no to people, you know, saying, kind of being true to your gut doesn't mean that you don't love them. I mean, it's,
But it's really hard to do, right? It's really a hard thing to do, to say no, to say, I'm not doing that anymore. It's a really difficult thing to
very
do.
difficult thing. Like, not saying no in a non-violent way, you know? Like, no, I'm not okay with that.
It may require some extensive communication that this is my reasoning, or this is what I feel about it, and therefore, no, not just saying, like a rebellious kid. No, I'm not going to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it needs a lot of maturity.
But Jussi, are you, so I mean, just to explore it further, are you saying, well, because we're talking about transformation, whatever that might mean, might in the end mean nothing anymore. And is transformation the same as solving some particular relationships in our life? Sorting out, solving some particular conflicts in our life. Is transformation the same as solving those particular? Is that what the problem is? I have two things in my life that I don't like. This and that. If I solve those, that is transformation. Is it? You understand what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's, or is there how those relationships are, how our relationships are, is a manifestation of has a deeper course, has a deeper underlying fabric which needs to be understood. Right, there are manifestations, but they're like branches, but it's not really the root of the issue.
Yeah.
The root of the issue is maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's what because we can all advise you and suggest you on that manifestation. Oh, your father, I did my father, I said this to him, and but
These are the branches.
That's a branch. Now, what is the underlying? What is the underlying human? Because I'm sure that's because we don't talk about you, we talk about everybody.
Right.
So what is the underlying fabric that we talk about that needs transformation? And so what are we, the branches will inevitably also change, but what is the root structure here?
The root is freedom.
Freedom.
To live into integrity, clarity, love, intelligence, all these that you want to. It's like oxygen for the soul. You need the oxygen. You need light. Otherwise, he said something about the tree needs freedom to grow. So you as a human being need freedom to grow. So if you get stuck in these puzzles, then you don't grow.
So somehow you're saying the two particular problems that you mentioned, with, for example, your father that you obey, that can be solved, but that still doesn't mean transformation.
It could be simultaneous.
But it could be simultaneously. Yes. Yeah. But so we're looking from the context not to solve a particular problem, but we're looking at it as a manifestation of one of a bigger issue, which is maybe a fear in life. Fear, a life based on fear, maybe.
Yes. And a life without freedom.
A life without freedom. And freedom meaning
a life based on fear.
Based on fear, So because then it's actually tangible. We're saying, okay, what we're coming to is saying, okay, we all have fear in our life in one way or another. And what does it mean? And that is then related to the question of transformation. And so now how? So if you now put the question of transformation, we know what we're talking about. We're talking about the ending of fear.
Right.
Or also, relationships can always serve as a mirror in which you can see yourself. So in that interaction with your father, what can you see about yourself as well? That's another question. All the emotions rising up in you and so on, what are you seeing of those emotions?
But then again, you can't just limit it to that particular relationship, because then the father may go away, then there's the husband, there's the boyfriend, there's the son, there's the, all these monsters coming the monster in me, bringing them up.
Not just the father, I'm saying all relationships can serve. But in that, use the example of your father, so I'm saying, what can you see about yourself in that interaction?
Then I'm a fearful, petty little human being, I guess. As he says that.
Don't denigrate yourself.
No, I mean, he doesn't.
Well, you don't have to.
No, I mean,
Please join the club. We have 2 members in the club.
I mean, like.
You don't have to condemn yourself. I mean, whatever it is,
No, I mean,
you can
no,
explore.
I mean, in a joking way.
Yeah.
Well, it has some reality. I mean, you know, when you live in fear, it's not very noble anyway. You don't like. I mean, it's yucky. So,
But is that,
there's no excuse.
are you living in fear though?
I think so.
Is that what you see about yourself in that interaction? Fear of what?
There's something stifling about I don't know, fear of what? I mean, fear.
Oppression.
It's the fear.
I mean,
What will happen if there is a change?
Actually, when you're saying, I mean, when you really go deep, there's not much to be feared anyway.
The fear of
That's fear, and yeah, it's not a particular object. Is that what you're saying? It's not like one particular reason.
There are, I mean, I fear of like, oh well, if I make him angry, then if I do this, if I do that, I mean, my financial situation. I mean, there are all these little like survival fears, and what if this? I mean, he's far away, and it's just a lot of little things that are involved. But again, this
Survival isn't very little.
survival.
I mean, economic survival is a very basic.
Yeah, it is.
Is it a fear of losing your security then?
Yeah, I mean, if I said it's economic too. I mean, my relationship with my father.
Oh, I see.
But isn't that what Yossi describes somehow related to all of us? Fear of our jobs, economic survival. I mean,
Yes.
The fear of maybe being acknowledged, maybe acknowledgement. Fear of losing affection, maybe.
Affection.
Affection.
Yeah.
Is it
And
of being sort of cast out
being cast out, fear of being cast out. Yeah.
Acceptance.
financially or emotionally?
Emotion, yeah.
Fear of not being accepted.
So that seems to be the fabric for all of us, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's it.
Yes.
So now if we put the question transformation, now we're talking about that.
Fear.
About that aspect.
Fear of not being.
Fear of not being. Could you say a bit more about that?
If I lose all these things, what am I?
Insecurity.
Because I'm fabricated with all these things. If you remove all these things, I'm connecting it to my neurotic activity. First of all, I don't want this neurotic activity, which in my observation I see it all.
That's why I put what would be love. It's that underlying fear of who would I be, what would I be?
Yeah.
I always ask if
What
it-
would be lost?
or what would be gained.
That was his question.
No, it was mine.
Wasn't it? Was yours? Okay, sorry.
What would be lost?
Does loss and gain come into the picture?
Obviously, I guess.
I think for me, when I'm thinking of this whole question of the fear that we all have. Loss is, I don't think about gain. It's like, oh my gosh.
And if it is loss, then it's you.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
some part of you is going to be lost.
And then the power of positive thinking, people say, oh, well, think of everything you'll gain and think of it positively. That's the gain part. Then you project, this new,
maybe
wonderful thing.
Both of those are in the same
Yeah,
direction.
yeah. Yeah,
That's-
they both revolve around the self.
Yes, yes.
I'll lose the self that I know, but there'll be a better one. I'll gain a better
What you
one.
can have, you can see, you can have a better life.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
But you're saying that if you rebel against, if you say no to your father, then you will also lose your financial security. So there's, no, I mean, there's two issues here. One is that you're being oppressed. You have to say yes to everything. That's bothering you, and also the fact that if you say no, then you might lose your financial security.
Yeah, I think
This
I'm being
is-
kind of like manipulated in a way by my father, and I'm just getting more clear and clear about it, and I don't like it.
He gets you to go along because you're dependent on him.
I feel that like my mother's been. I mean, it's just this thing's kind of seeing it more and more. But this is personal. I
yeah,
mean,
are the specific details really relevant? Because actually the
it's
fear,
not
the
relevant.
particular circumstances are actually for all of us.
Exactly.
And we can deepen in onto that, but I mean,
Yes.
these
No, I
questions
agree with that.
for each. So how do we look at if this is for all of us? I mean, the situation, our life situation, fear, that our lives are based on fear. How in that context do we look at the word transformation? Because if the transformation has to have an impact on that, it has to be related to that. But otherwise, what would be transformed?
Exactly.
Yes.
So basically, the block to transformation is fear.
No, but what would be transformation at all? Would it be? I mean, the block means that because we're still looking at the word. I mean, I think Jan put it up. What do we mean by transformation? Now we're now clear that the human suffering and our suffering is related to fear. And so what is transformation then?
Can I give you my example?
Yeah.
See how?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I was in real estate and the money was amazing, but I was very unhappy because I was I created an image around that, and I had to be that image, and it was really hard for me to be in that because I was very unhappy because it was not authentically me. So all these things happened. I had to make a change. I got into yoga, and there's not a lot of money in yoga. So, yes, at times I feel like, well, maybe I should do something that makes me a lot of money because it's security, it's safety. But I wasn't happy, so I don't want to be there. So now I'm trying to follow my truth, follow something more authentic that's going to fulfill me. So where is the transformation there? Like, how do I transform? And what is transformation? So is that just following my truth, although I'm not going to have that type of money? I'm going to have to simplify everything to live authentically? Is that the transformation?
Well, that sounds like an ideal, right?
Analysis.
Hmm?
More of an analysis there. Analyzation.
Maybe this idea of transformation is not doing us much good. Because maybe it's kind of unnecessary. It's like what you had gotten to was fear being the bedrock of the problem there. And then, so if we understand fear, then so if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transformation. So if we understand fear, then we can understand transfor then maybe we don't even need to think about transformation, do we?
Right. I mean, just, yeah, you kind of going deep to the root of the problem. Yeah. It's like, again, making like an image of transformation, which is just theoretical and doesn't have any.
But anyway, we thought that we shouldn't start with transformation. We should start with where we are. What is our discomfort? Because we can't keep saying, I want to transform, I want to transform.
Yeah, so we're clear about that. We're clear about our situation, about our human suffering. That's also. So I can strategize. I can say, okay, maybe this will work. And yeah, of course, one has to try out right things. And life doesn't stop. But how? So if we don't use the word, how do we go about it if we don't use the word transformation?
Yeah, I think Krishnamurti is talking about something a little different. You know, I think you started to go there with the idea of what do we mean by transformation. I think he's talking about some kind of complete mutation in genes and stuff. What we're talking about is like an uncomfortable life situation. Maybe transformation is a little too dramatic a term. Maybe change.
But perhaps the discomfort is related to a limited state of consciousness, right? That discomfort that she feels, or anyone feels, is related to a limited consciousness, which, if one really looks into it, not starting out with the premise of transformation, perhaps transformation occurs.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm sure that we don't need the idea of complete transformation. I mean, maybe that's the only thing that really...
No, I don't think we have to start off with the idea of transformation at all. This is simple staying with what you're going through. Has to come to that state.
But it seemed like with her life, she wants something like a transformation. You know, it's not just I want to fix.
Yes, but if we look at the fear,
it's like something pretty good sized. Isn't that right?
But
How big is it?
How big?
If we look at the fear, then perhaps it could be, I don't know your situation, but it could be because we all want security. And when that is denied, there's enormous fear. We all have desires, we all want pleasures to be fulfilled. And when that is denied, there's fear.
Yeah, and there's also the fact of like being lazy, and it's just a tremendous amount of work that you have to do, like psychological, and you kind of like really kind of get up and do something, and you don't want to do it, so
Psychologically, we need to figure it
also
all
I
out.
think, and yeah, I think it's a lot of work to understand yourself. It seems like the most important, it's the biggest challenge is just to understand yourself. I think that's a lot of work, it seems.
What do you call work?
What we're doing here, if you were supposed to do it in your own room, that's a lot of work.
No, it is hard, yes, it's arduous.
Yeah, we could do it here. I think that even Kay, that's the purpose of his talking, is that we could do it right here and now. And that has always been his aim, if you want to call it that, in talking, in revealing the possibility. Because I like to think of the impossible question always begins with the same three words. Is it possible? Because for most of our thinking lies, we're saying it's impossible. It's impossible to change. This is an impossible situation in which I'm in. And right then and there, you're looking right at the problem. Where you're saying, you're not asking the right question. Is it possible to change?
Sometimes there is
You were talking about some situation that was a similar one, wasn't it? That you were you talking about transformation of your life? That, that you were in a job that you really didn't like, but rather than stay there, you went to yoga, to doing yoga, but the problem there is not enough money. Well, I guess my question is, how do you feel now about that? Do you feel like the transformation has happened? Or
No. See, I think yours is very different because there's fear involved and you want approval from your father, and it goes deeper. For me, I don't have that fear. I know everything's going to work out.
With the financial aspect.
I know it's all going to work out. I have no doubt about that. It will come together. So it's a little different, when it comes to finances. And as far as the acceptance part, yeah, I can relate to that because my mother really wants me to be that I don't want to be. And it did create a lot of conflict. But, it's my life, and I cannot live my life for my mom. So,
So what would mean transformation for you? This word is now becoming really difficult, but...
I don't think that's possible, transformation, now that I'm thinking about it. There's something that he said that really concerned me, though. He says, if you want to change, you have to change today to be something different tomorrow. How is that possible? I don't know where to start, to be honest with you.
But that is more like you're saying, okay, I don't think I can do it, right? That's what you're saying. Or are you saying, well, it's not possible?
I have faith.
Yeah.
I don't know if that plays anything into what we're talking about, but I'm just kind of going through the process, and I know that I will be led in the right direction. That's more of an energy thing, but that's what I know. That's all I know. So that's.
But in both cases, it seems that there's an immense need for security. In this financial security, and for you as well, but also approval from your father is also a type of security, right? After all.
Not anymore. Things change. It's funny that things even change during this dialogue. Something that was important like an hour ago. It's just.
So then, is it possible that we've been talking about transformation as this huge idea, that someday we're going to radically change, and instead, change is always happening. There's always transformation going on. We just want it to be this meaningful transformation, rather than like the change you might be expressing right now.
But change and transformation just seems so different.
Because transformation might be the big change.
Right, drastic.
But what's the need for a big change?
Actually, when we are talking about transformation, if you go to the physical science, you're an engineer, transformer. That means there is a state from one state to another state. There is a time involved. That's a transformation as far as scientifically. But are we talking about transformation in that respect? Or are we speaking about transformation where there is no state at all, statelessness? Statelessness, in which there is no state, that is the transformation.
Could you say a little more about what you mean by no state? Do you mean no fixed?
Going from one state, waterfall, generating electricity, that's a transformation from water to the electricity. That's scientific definition of transformation. But now what I'm saying is, isn't it the transformation is a state where there is no state at all? There is no point A, there is no point B.
So nothing's fixed? Nothing's crystallized, she used the word crystallized earlier.
And it's
Nothing's
interesting
set.
that you said something about change, that since you know, there's always change all the time. If you just go with change all the time, then that is transformation. Because nothing is, you know, you can't project something, big idea, something in the future, bang, and then you're free or something. Freedom is like every minute, it seems.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But is it change in the same?
Am I making it up? I don't know.
No,
Is it a change in the same field? If we're changing, going from this area to another, which is a change. But that field itself may be limited ultimately. Then the change is not really a transformation.
That's a movement.
It's just moving from one point to another
Point
in
A
the
to
same
point B.
limited state.
Yeah, that's not
That's not transformation.
That's not really change.
What is that?
Not transformation, I would say.
What do you
It's
call
a
that?
change.
Yeah.
What do you call that?
It's a change, but it's not a transformation.
But what do you call that movement?
Adjustment.
from point A to point B.
Adjustment.
No, I mean, also, I mean, in the day here, I think, and also in the previous one, he says there is something like gradual growth. You start to understand something, and then something, there's learning. He said, and you understand some of your fears. And he says, inevitably, he says there is definitely a place for that. I think to say there's only this state and then there's transformation is. That's one. And the other thing, I mean, that's maybe a little bit to Zach. So okay, so the what we call the trap, of course, of formulating in our head the ultimate carrot and the biggest carrot you can get, and that's transformation, and just hunting after that, right? And then being caught in that. But at the same time, you can also look if I see that and I drop that, there is another challenge. Is like when we talked about fear just before, we all almost recognize that fear is an ingredient of our day-to-day existence. It might be subtly there, it might be mindfully there in relationship, what people think of us, what I think about myself, and others. That fear is like the bedrock of day-to-day existence. Now, we might have accepted actually that is so, that it will always be like that. We almost like that there's a sense of acceptance coming on this. So that might be what we put on the question here. Is it so that we more or less say, well, this is what life's going to be, and this is probably till the end of my life. I've learned to live with this. Adapted. Occasionally I grow a little bit. I solved the problem with my father, but then I had the problem there. I solved the problem I had with a particular issue, but the movement is still more or less the same and continue. And I have to accept that the movement is like that.
But acceptance of fear, does it resolve the cause for the fear, or root of the fear?
Obviously no.
Yeah, obviously no. Yeah.
No, so there's something unusually happening. We're all familiar with growing and learning, you know. But certain particular fears that we had, you're not afraid for Santa Claus anymore. You might be in the past, but now, you know. So that there are things that or for your teacher, like, you know, I mean, so we all grow at a certain way, and certain particular things we grow out of, and some of us make bigger jumps than others, but it's still within the same structure of fear. Mm-hmm. And then Krishnamurti comes along and he says, well, you know, have you ever questioned that? Have you ever questioned, can all fear come to an end? Do you, or are you accepting that fear is a permanent ingredient of your life and you have to work your way with it, find a comfortable place? Or it might not be so, it might be possible, we don't know. But that question's been thrown at us. Can all fear come to an end?
Yeah. And also, you know, when in that thing, then you have to see that, you know, the ultimate fear is fear of death.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And fear of loss and all that, and yeah.
You're right.
That's huge.
You're right. Ultimate fear is fear of death. But many people don't have the fear of death when he's 5, 10 and 15. But fear, as it is, fear of something, fear of relationship, fear of being not recognized by the peers. That fear is not different from the fear of death. But that fear starts at the age of 5 itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think this is really an important kind of, I don't know, discussion, because what you're saying about fear being with us, just an ingredient in our lives all the time, that's a pretty big deal. But yeah, it's not the way we look at our lives, really. We look, you know, how am I going to get the new set of tires on my car? Or wait a minute, what about my job? Is it really going to stay? And you know, but I'm not seeing fear is an ingredient in my life all the time. It's going to be fear of this or that or the other thing. Suppose we were to really look at that, I mean, and see fear is probably a permanent ingredient in my life. What then? You know, I mean, if we saw our discomfort in those kind of terms, it might be helpful.
Does our consciousness that we live in, all of us, does it necessarily lead to fear? Is fear part of that consciousness?
It's inevitable, are you saying?
Inevitable. And if so, then the only way to dissolve that fear or resolve it is to wipe away that consciousness. Right?
I think you should go back one step. When we are all talking about the fear, how did you jump into consciousness?
Because of transformation, right? Because there's an idea of transformation.
No, here itself, the clarity has to be there. That's what I felt.
But it's not coming. Like, you know, we're sort of. I thought we were stuck, so I said.
That fear to transfer, fear to consciousness. What is that bridge? There is something missing there.
So what is that?
Is it connected to what you said, that the fears that we start to have when we're 5, we're not afraid to die probably, but it's not a different fear than
Basically,
the fear of death. It's not different from the fears we have when we're young and we're not really thinking much about death.
Fear of death is not different from fear of being not recognized by the peers, but the fear starts as early as when you are 5 or 6. That's, as he said, it's an ingredient part of our life from the beginning. And we don't really look at it. That's what I'm trying to say.
And fear that you're speaking of is related to consciousness. Consciousness being the self.
Is there a fundamental insecurity which is integral, which is inherent in our consciousness, which we're constantly trying to secure, see, with money or comforts or approval, or approval from parents or relatives and so on and so forth. And then when we posit that or project that security, immediately there's fear that I may not get that, I may not have that security. So fundamentally, we have to look at that insecurity of our consciousness. It's not quite right. There's something fundamentally limited about that our self-consciousness. It's not secure.
I wonder if we could say that fear really requires thought. That without thought, we don't really have fear.
And the thinker.
Yeah, and the thinker naturally.
Which are joint processes. I feel. Thought, thinker always go together.
Thought and fear, yeah.
Thought and thinker.
And, well...
You want to go back to that authority issue that we talked about yesterday?
Yeah. What are you trying to say?
Let's see. So let's see. Fear, what we're calling fear then, this thing that we're seeing that we have to live with day to day, and it takes these different forms. First it's a fear of this, and it's a general anxiety, it's this and that. This thing requires thought. And if we weren't thinking, we wouldn't be suffering that kind of fear. But we are thinking. We're thinking all the time. And so we come back to that same problem of what do we do about thought? and we are thought, so there isn't much we can probably do about it. There are certain things that people do about thought, and that is meditation. And once again, the Buddhists say, well, the answer to this is meditation. And in fact, people do meditation and quiet the mind, and the whole idea is to deal with that persistent cranking of thought, which just wears us out and maintains fear and anxiety. So maybe there's a question of, is there a kind of meditation, even let us not exclude practice, just because Krishnamurti says, no, but is there something in that direction, in meditation, that can help us deal with this chronic thought, chronic fear, chronic anxiety? Krishnamurti says that meditation is the ending of thought. The ending of thought is the beginning of real meditation, is what he actually says.
Yeah.
So if we were to consider meditation, choiceless awareness, the present moment, and what is, all those things, suppose that it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing, which is a state without this cranking of thought all the time. And that if we talk about a transformation, that's the transformation, it would be something like an ability to live in that way.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see...
And Kray also says that meditation is, one can, just looking at the fear itself is meditation. It's a type of awareness. And in that process, it comes to an end.
Yeah.
It comes to an end.
Okay, so that would be one way, I guess, a way, is we consider we have anxieties, we have plenty to look at. And let's suppose that we thought an important thing here would be to look at our anxieties and fears. But what do we mean, look at them? Do we mean think about them? Yeah, probably that's somehow to be conscious of, to be aware of our fears. We can actually be aware of emotion because it's in our bodies, so we can kind of, you know, with our thinking mind, we can recognize our feelings somewhat. So it would be possible to look at anxiety and fear in a way that I don't think it's possible to look at thought itself. But I don't know what I'm saying. I'm saying, I guess, if we're looking to see if there is some way out of this trap that we're in, the thought, would it be along the lines of meditation? And then you're suggesting that that would be something like looking at our fears and anxieties or being aware of them.
And perhaps that awareness can lead to the perception that it is this thought process and the thinker process, which is at the root of it.
Well, it's the thought process, but I don't know about the thinker part.
I think, but I'm with you there. This whole meditation itself leads you to be aware of the thinking process. And I have difficulty in saying thought. What is thought?
What do you think?
What do you think
We
about
were
that?
talking about the movement.
Well, that's a thought.
Oh.
No, I mean, you asked what's the thought.
I mean, actually the movement is going on in my brain, churning.
Yeah.
All I know is a movement. I don't know what is thought. You see what I mean?
Can't we say that thought is movement in the brain? Movement in the mind, if we want to use the word mind. It's movement that includes feeling and verbalization and images, any kind of movement. If there's no movement, then there's stillness, silence, in other words, then we're in a state of not thinking. But if there's any kind of movement, which we see all day long and half the night, we're thinking. Would that work?
Yeah, I'm very close to you. But that is what is the fear all about.
Too deaf to hear you.
Would you say, is that what the fear is all about?
I would also add that thinking is basically
That
responsive memory.
Yeah.
Thinking is a responsive memory.
And stopping, if it stops, that is what is the fear all about.
But the movement itself is fear.
Yeah.
And stopping the movement as well. But the movement itself is fear. Because it's always limited, it's always the past. It's a separated process. It's a limiting process. And therefore, inbuilt in that is insecurity. That which is always divided is all constantly in fear.
Can I propose something? Because I see, I'm also thirsty, and this is a good time to have a break.
Yeah.
And see people walking out. That's maybe. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody against a good cup of coffee with a cookie?
Hey, that's a pleasure.
So you hold your thoughts so you can. Or you can continue, of course, in the break.
It's a necessity.
And that's so, Sita, you can just make it for the sunset, eh?
Okay.
Don't go sit in the car somewhere.
I have.
That's what
Way
Yeah, that'd be too much.
Get up, get up.
Hey, get out.
I shouldn't have talked.
Too late. Too late. Remember, Kate said, I'll get up after you guys get done.
Oh, we have cake.
Let them eat cake.
Gosh, I ate so much today. I hope they won't give us dinner. They will. Great.
Consider yourself broken. Huh? Consider yourself broken. Yeah, they actually have a heating system. Underneath, yeah. That's what I see. There's one here, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Is it in there too? No, I see it there also. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Insert. Yeah. What do they call that? Where they heat up the tiles there? You know how they heat up the tiles?
Yeah, great.
They use them recyclable.
Inside.
There is a vent.
Yes.
Only the up there.
There's lots of hot air here.
Huh?
There's lots of hot air here.
Hello, Jerry.
Hi.
How are you?
Yes.
It's nice to see you.
You too, Phyllis. Yes.
How's Isabel?
She's home.
She's home.
Starting during Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Getting ready.
She comes over sometimes when I come here. And she likes to sit in the quiet room. I was just with a woman who's visiting. She did it for the first time just a few minutes ago. And we were talking, but she was asking if people feel things out here. And I said, for sure. I said, I never feel anything, but among others, my wife does feel things. And so we started into the thing there, and she just came to a standstill. And I said, I said, "Do you have a question?" I said, "No, I'm feeling it."
Yeah, I had not really gone in there, and then it was last time, one time before I came for the event weekend. The last morning I was here, I just walked up and I was sitting on that porch there, and I felt that quiet. Didn't realize I was sitting outside the quiet room. But it was really peaceful.
Right. Yeah, that's all I can say is I feel good.
Yeah.
And so maybe in my male background or something, too much intellectualism, that I'm unable to identify in my feelings. I may have it, but I'm reinterpreting something else.
But you do feel something, you feel peaceful.
Maybe. And I feel kind of peaceful all the time. I was just thinking about that this morning, that about the whole idea of choiceless awareness and the effect. What it does is it enables you to sustain a mood over a period of time. You're not feeling kind of pleasant just for maybe 15 minutes, and then some big, bad negative thing keeps coming back to you, and it interrupts your flow of feeling and thought. And that it just happens less and less to me. I can just go along and just feel a sustained mood, because it's not all this stuff that just gives up on it. It keeps trying to come, but if you just learn to just sit with it, then it's like the inner self there sort of gives up.
Yeah.
It has tried.
Get away with it anymore.
Yeah. Right, that's right. I can give it a say, but that's all.
Yeah. Good. Say hello to Isabel for me.
Yes.
Yeah, nice to see you.
We got a little card from that other man that you met. That's
Russ?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been emailing.
Yeah, that's what happened. I sent us an email. It was really just to check the email address on. I guess that's correct.
Yeah.
But he did put a little note in there. How much he enjoyed being here and for that.
It's a nice man.
So are you liking this?
Very much. Yeah. I always like it.
Yeah.
I always
You
enjoy
get
it.
into that.
It's always different. It's always something new.
Yes, right.
Refreshing.
Yeah. Right.
It's always nice just to be here. There's so many nice things about it.
Where is this card? She put her book. Oh, this one. I just want to borrow her book. I was reading something in this.
Patty's here again. Remember Patty?
Yes.
I don't think she said anything last time.
Actually,
She's new.
I see.
Christian radio.
And now she's starting to speak out. That's
Exactly.
good. And she poked her head into the bookstore just before 3. Read something. Asked if I remembered her. I said, yes. I had to ask her your name. And I said, are you seated? And she said, no, I'm Patty. I said, oh, God. I asked her her name, and she said it was Patty.
She's my roommate again. We just met last time because we were roommates.
Right. Yeah, she's a real young beauty. She can break a lot of hearts.
Yeah. She's pretty level-headed too, so she'll probably get through that.
Right. I think so. Okay.
All right, take care.
I'm supposed to go back to my bookstore.
So, he doesn't want to see that people who get meditation and sleep the word, but that's why I don't. meetings, there's no time. You had a few days of spell of that. And you sit there and you want to completely there's a thought. That is silence. When I hear you say that I
Malcolm has lost a piece of paper. Huh? Malcolm has lost a little piece of paper, so I was looking around for it.
Well done.
There was some numbers. Did you find it, Malcolm?
No, it's just...
You sat here.
Yeah.
You didn't move
It was
anywhere.
out there, but I wrote it. What is it? I just wrote some numbers on a small post-it note, but out there I want this way. I'll find it.
You walk that way though?
Yeah, it was in this area.
In this conversation, okay?
We just making conversation. Just asking about the thought and once, last time when we were speaking to Mark, he went and asked Krishnamurti.
Are they obedient?
They're not obedient. I wish there wasn't, there needs
I
to be
don't
more
know.
fear.
Said, putting the palms facing the sky. What did they when he said that? So that's what.
That is only physical aspect.
No, he was telling me that that's what we were talking about. That in the school, in the morning, He wanted.
Your book?
Krishnamurti wanted to
Book?
Oh,
have
This is yours.
it's Ken's, yeah.
half an hour meditation.
Thank you.
Are you still saying thought is that movement which we, neurotic movement which we, without taking
Dictionary for
are
mouth.
you equating thought to the neurotic movement without taking these sides?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding.
That's where
Neurotic movement?
Neurotic means, see,
the brain moving.
yeah, it's all brains and cells and waves and everything. That's neurotic. That's what I understand.
And you're calling that a neurotic movement?
Yeah,
And I'm calling it thought.
that's what I'm trying to figure it out. Without any fixed things.
Yeah, it's just,
When the moment fixed things are there, they become the thinkers.
what becomes the thinker?
If they stand, if that neurotic movement takes a stand, either positive or negative, it becomes the thinker. Otherwise, it's keep on moving.
But you think if it stops, it becomes the thinker?
No,
No?
if it stops, there is a quietness.
Yeah, yeah.
On the other side, in that pendulum movement, it can become thinker. That's what I was saying.
The other side becomes the thinker?
Thinker. Quietness is different from thinker.
So I guess I'm saying that the movement of thought creates the thinker. But there isn't actually a thinker, there's just the thought.
Yeah.
And it's just the movement of thought. If the movement of thought stops, there's no thought and no thinker.
No thought and no quietness.
Yeah.
That is the natural quietness. That is where it starts the meditation.
Yeah. That's what we are discussing about silence. When there's no thought, what is there?
We don't know what is silence.
When there's no thought, what is there?
So,
Okay, let's put a complete blank. When there's no thought.
There's perception. So we can see, we can smell.
Yoshi, what are all these people doing?
Or should I tell them to come? They're just enjoying this.
Try to instill fear.
Crack the whip!
We have fear.
Information coming in. There's just no
We
movement.
are still in fear.
I'm traveling, nobody is coming. So
Not enough
instill
fear.
some more fear there.
Perception or
Fear of judgment,
blindness or silence?
fear of, any kind of fear is good.
Fear is good. I'm afraid. Not superficial fears. We are in deep down.
Perceiving. There also something is
So
there.
it's fear.
No, it's,
Even there's no perception.
no, it's Jansbach. Beim Reinigen ist so,
Only you perceive it, it is not
So she is
necessarily in the
approving
silence.
stealing.
She's what?
You are silent.
Approving stealing.
Oh, I approve it.
Yeah. And that doesn't belong to us.
Anyway, yeah.
Because there is no
Stealing, Francesca?
other thoughts in you. You are
Always doing something wrong, right?
That can be your identity.
You just
Always
reply
doing
back
something
to
wrong.
me.
Yeah, I think that's it.
When you reply, we always reply, but we are replying with the memory, with the knowledge, with the experience that we have. But in the silence,
Okay.
Where is it?
Don't listen to me.
Uh-oh, Dad's coming.
I need to be harder on myself.
If there, if there
I'm
is
making a joke.
conversation,
we always have to
there
wait
is
for
a
I
silence.
need to be harder on
no,
myself.
that's what.
He is frustrated now.
When he comes in,
We have to use
There's
it.
none
We
of
have to
fear.
use it.
when he's having a dialogue,
You guys are fun together.
very warm and everybody understands.
They pick on each other.
There's a
Right.
thought that's coming out expressing, but the thought doesn't have the memory or experience behind it. It's a silence. In the silence, there's a thought.
There is one person missing.
I think you either have thought or
Yeah,
have
that's
silence.
Huh?
You don't have both.
Oh, yeah, well, just, so,
No, the thought is different from the thought you are having in the mundane life. There
You
is.
sit there if you want.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll sit up there.
a question, so it's, what we can do, we have about 1.5, 2 hours left. We can continue discussing, or we can watch a video.
How long is it?
Hour?
So there would be room for a little bit of discussion at the end.
Yeah. Make it clear. It's clear. And that's clear, there's also time at the dining table, we can just pick it up.
Okay.
So, any preference in one direction or the other?
I kind of like to.
Should we finish that thought that we had having before?
Yeah.
The fear and all that? Sorry,
You're eating cake in here?
sorry, I forgot the rule
Against the
that,
rules.
Yeah.
forgot the rule that no food.
I would prefer food and drink to keep outside, because it just needs one person to drop some
Yeah,
chocolate
you're right,
cake,
you're right.
and then it's...
I'll finish it fast.
I think we should finish what we started.
What did we start?
You told them to hold that thought and we'd start with it. Could we maybe like have a little half-hour dialogue and then see a video?
Yeah.
Who is unwilling to do that? Half an hour dialogue. So at 5:45, I put on the video. Anybody against? 1, 2, yes. We have decided.
But where were we?
So I'm going to sit down.
Stuck in fear.
Seems to be a common, in all the dialogues and discussions that I go to, it seems to be, it always comes down to that. That becomes the core of the discussion.
Fear?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And, what does it tell us then? That's what we're concerned about. Most of us are concerned about fear, and but I don't overcome it. Get rid of it. We see it in our daily, how much it is in our daily lives, that almost defines our life. Our life is so much so that Kay could call it petty, ugly.
Yeah, lives. There's something about
And is that what makes our lives petty and ugly? This fear, the fear factor, and as I understand it, it's freedom from fear. That's Krishnamurti's goal, if you want to call it that, in his talks, to set every man, woman, absolutely unconditionally free. Freedom is his, I see it very clearly. Freedom is what he's talking about, because we are enslaved by our thought. Thought breeds fear, as I learned very early. I saw very early, and that continues to be the, as we see here, the main thing in our lives. Keeps us from being free, or from doing, acting freely. Ruins our relationships, and all the things that love and keeps us unfree, free to be, to enjoy life. So let's go into it. See or not?
At a young age, you were aware of that?
I guess so, yeah.
Like
Because-
as a child?
Yeah, because I didn't have the same kind of family experience as most. In fact, I really feel a kinship with Kay because I was taken out of, I didn't have any family relationship. I was in a, well, they called it a day and night nursery. That's a euphemism for an orphanage. And so my mother died when I was very young, and my brother and I, Kay and his brother, were brought into an institution. And I stayed there for 10 years.
And how did this awareness of fear come?
Well, I suppose it's not having the family life, not having a family. I was institutionalized.
But I'm saying how did the awareness, what was the
I
awareness?
could see that in myself, yeah.
You saw your own fear?
Yeah.
As a child?
Yeah. So I was very shy and quiet, but the thought process builds up all kinds of fears. So I wasn't this chatty for a good 20 years. Then I decided one day when I was going to school, I said, I'm going to learn. That's why I'm going to school. And I'm going to go to school every day and learn something. And of course they don't teach that facing fear at the schools. But that's when I became interested in learning and in the words we use and the names we use. It's a wonderful change from the fear of someone doing something wrong, not doing something right. And then looking at the nature of fear itself. It's a beautiful thing, as I like to say. There's a great deal of freedom in that, to see the source.
The source of fear?
It's a beautiful thing.
As taught, you were saying that.
Yeah, and how it works, and how we relate to each other. We relate to each other in fear. And there is no relationship in fear. That's what I'm beginning to see. You don't get related. You're unrelated. You're cut off. And then seeing that, I begin to see that, well, then where is love in all this? Where is love in that? Is there any love in that? And you find out pretty clearly that that's not love. All fear prevents love. That's what I've come to see.
Mm-hmm.
You see the physical fear and then psychological fear.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, physical fear is there from animal to the animals and also to the human beings. I mean, if we say that we came from the animal, maybe physical fears came from the animal instinct. Now, when did the psychological fear kick in and how?
Yeah. You should not. See, I think animals, I'm not sure if animals get the should not.
Yeah, I mean, there is fear in animals. I mean,
and I'm an animal.
So when did that convert physical fear into psychological fear? How?
Yeah, it sets up authorities. I can see that now. Your mother, your father, the teacher, even your friends. The words you use, words they use. You think you're the word, the names you've been called.
So it's related to early sense of self.
Finding out who I am. Who am I? I'm still doing it. But it resonates.
He's asking how or when does the instinctive animal physical fear become psychological fear?
Yeah.
Physical fear becomes psychological.
Isn't that what you're asking? How does it become? Or
Yeah, when did that physical fear converted into psychological fear?
Converts into, yes. How does that?
Yeah.
What is that process?
Don't know.
But that is what basically we are dealing with. But there is fear that is there, given, before even the evolution of the man. And now, man is there, and then psychological fear came in now. Why that converted physical fear converted to psychological fear? Why? What's the origin?
Well, what do you mean by psychological fear? What is that?
Psychological fear is a relationship. If I do something, my husband, my wife doesn't like it, or my wife thinks if I do this, my husband doesn't like it. That's psychological fear. Physical fear is...
How is that different from other fear then?
How does it different from?
Yeah.
From?
From the rest of fear.
Physical
I'm
fear
trying
is
to get at
natural.
what's the difference between psychological fear and regular fear?
What's regular fear?
Physical fear, like being afraid of a predator in the woods.
Yeah,
kind of
is
thing.
that, did you get the first part of what he said? That animals have the instinctive fear, to
Of
protect themselves. Survival, yeah. And we have that too, because we're animals too, but how does it, what's the process for that becomes psychological fear? Like I have to defend my reputation, or you insulted me when you said that. All that's psychological.
Well, I guess I wouldn't have the idea of psychological fear. I wouldn't make that kind of difference. I would say all fear is fear, and the animals have fear. We can see that, but they don't have the language thinking that we have. So we have this ability to symbolize and do metaphors and crank out all kind of scenarios where we could be in danger, and also to wonder what people are thinking about us, which probably the cat doesn't think. And so it's just fear that is happening in a little bit bigger brain as well as the body. I would just say we have fear, and the interesting question is I think what this brings up is really, there's the general in terms of looking at fear. There's the general, and then there's the specific. Or the particular fear would be a particular fear, whereas the general notion of fear altogether that includes all fear would be the general notion. This applies to other things too. So can we see fear and understand fear at the general level rather than any specific fear? Like we might have a fear of being broke, losing my job.
That's a psychological. That's what I'm saying.
And also I might have a fear that my tire is going to blow out.
That's also psychological.
That's psychological?
Yeah.
Okay.
And physical, to some extent. Physical, because you might get injured.
So, but it's a thought. It may not blow up the tire. What I'm trying to say
It's
is,
psychological. It's psychological to
It hasn't happened.
that you're tired.
Yeah, it hasn't
When
happened.
It
does,
hasn't happened.
then you react.
yes,
in the car.
it hasn't happened. See, what I'm trying to drive here is physical fear. I go to the cliff of the mountain and I look there. Oh my God, if I fall, I'll die. If I walk back, the fear is gone. Whereas psychological fear, I hurt somebody, my relationship with him gone, and that continues as long as you want to continue, as long as you are thinking about it. That's why psychological fear, how really psychological fear kicked in the tribal society. Now you said, there are lots of fears. In a tribal society, a small tribe in the forest, when they started, okay, the tribe within themselves don't have fear, okay, but when they saw another tribe coming and occupying this tribe, the fear started. Once again, that's a physical or psychological. When they notice another tribe, they said, oh, we've got to be very careful with this tribe. They are strong. They may come and take this tribe out. That's how it kicked in.
Okay, I would still refrain from the use of the idea of psychological fear, and I would say that all fear is fear. And to understand fear really deeply, we need to see what is common to all fear. In other words, if I have a fear of my tire blowing out, whether it's psychological or not, how is that the same as the fear that my wife is going to leave? If I could understand what is common to all fear, not that all fear is the same, but what is it that is the common ingredient, then I would be looking at the essence of fear.
Is survival always involved?
Survival of what?
Well, if your tire is bald, your fear could be very practical and intelligent.
Yeah.
It's, if my tire blows on the freeway, I could be
Well,
killed.
That may be
But-
something to question.
Well, let me finish, then question you. But the fear that my wife or someone is going to abandon me, that's survival of the me. The self, that's, because I'm emotionally dependent on this person. Who I am, my sense of who I am is involved with this person. So I'm asking, is the question of survival, whether it's, you don't like the word psychological, but I'm going to use, whether it's psychological survival sense of self or just, a practical physical thing like, oh, that's dangerous, I better take care of it. Is survival a key element in all fear? I'm asking.
Survival, you would say.
I'm asking.
Survival, you're asking the question, is survival
A component.
a key, a component of all fear?
Yeah.
Which is something not ending. Survival means that it will continue on.
Right.
We're afraid of something
Yeah.
dying, whether it's the me or the body, consciousness.
Right.
So you would say it's like, what a common ingredient is not wanting whatever it is to end. Is that right?
That's what it sounds like we're doing.
Can you see the last? What did you say just now?
He's saying, Jack's suggesting that it's, the common element would be a fear that that something is going to end, the relationship or my life, I guess, or in other words, a lack of continuity is the common ingredient in all fear. Can we think that?
Ending.
And death.
Not how come I cut you off? Did you want to ask your question? You said you had questioned something.
Well, it had to do with survival.
Yeah.
And again, I look at the word. You see the word life in there? The viva is revival. It means to live beyond, see, beyond life. When that's a matter of living is the key factor, and not what's beyond. That's why one of the books that Kay's called is called Life Ahead. It's life now, not life afterwards. So we're afraid to live. That's what that's what I see. And I think that's what Kay is saying too.
Well, what if as animals, as we all are, like I think saying I was that I feel the way that seems simplest to me to look at it is that we have these emotions which break down into fear and desire, and that this is in us as very early in the animal stage of evolution, and it's survival, because animals that don't have those things working for them aren't around, because they're either eaten or starved to death. So there's this protective thing, there's this thing about staying alive that requires that we have this emotional, basis. And then as we evolve, we get this bigger and bigger brain, and then we evolve language, and then we evolve abstract thinking, and then we have what the gentleman is calling psychological fear, but it's actually that same stuff, animal fear, just the bigger brain is doing the same thing. It's imagining survival to be a matter of people like me or don't like me. My family is protected or it's not. I can envision a big problem and I have anxiety, and so fear goes all the way through all that. And so fear drives thought then. Fear and desire are driving thought. They're energizing it. They're what causes us to think about certain things. And so I guess I was proposing last night that what we're calling the me, the self, is actually thought driven by fear and desire. I don't know. Does this make sense to anybody?
Yeah, it does. The self is me driven by...
No, thought driven by fear and desire is the me. There isn't a certain thing that's broken off from consciousness or anything. It's just thought. And it's thought reacting to fear and desire. We're afraid something's going to happen, and we want something else to happen, and that is the brain operating in that way, and that is the me.
Which is nuts. The way you describe it,
but it's just
and it is.
It's just the life we live.
Yeah.
Is that the life we live? That makes our lives petty and ugly and brutal, or as Jonathan Swift said, life is short, nasty, and brutish.
So would it be any use to us to think, to have the conception that fear is with us all the time, and in one form or another, really mild, almost non-existent fear, anxieties of certain kinds, just ideas that occur to us that are of a worried nature, or then we also have the kind of thinking where we want something, pleasure and security, and it's the same thing, really. The Buddhists say it's two sides of the same coin, and they call it attachment.
You got it?
Or desire.
Attachment.
Trishna.
Attachment.
Or
The Sanskrit word is trishna, which is desire as well. Desire, attachment.
Yeah, desire and fear.
Is this what Kay is saying?
He does, in a way. He says that that fear and desire drive thought. That's not the only thing he says on the subject, but he does say that. I think we can see that too, because there's a bunch of stuff we just don't care about, and we don't think about it because we don't care about it. You know, like, consider the capitals of all the states, the capital cities. Who cares, you know? I am not driven to think about that hardly ever. But I will, there's all kinds of things that I'm anxious about, and all kinds of things that I want, and those are the things that I think about. So this is what I say, it's an example of thought being driven by fear and desire. And that is the me. That's selfishness for one thing, and that's the self totally, I would say. You would say, shut up.
Or is thought itself is fear as well. Instead of fear driving thought, I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to perhaps draw the distinction. But thought, thinker perhaps are fear itself.
Does anybody want to say that thought causes fear?
The thinker in his need to become secure,
Yeah.
I feel drives fear.
There's insecurity in thought itself.
Thought creates the fear, and what you're saying about desire and fear drives the thought, instead of saying that, it strengthens the thought. Initially, thought drives the fear, and the continuity of fear and desire strengthens the thought. I mean, I'll put it in simple sentences, okay? Now, in the relationship, okay, when the relationship is disturbed, there's a fear. In that fear, thought, let's put it like a self, or I become stronger and stronger than saying, you know, what did I do? This I did it. That is, I did it for their sake. Whatever I did is good. Why they are not understanding me? My I is becoming much stronger in that. So originally thought breeds the fear, and desire and continuity of desire strengthens the thought.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yes. It becomes stronger.
Stronger. That's what I see it. Whenever there is a relationship, whenever there is something going wrong between two people, that's where you go on analyzing and you say it, whatever I did is for his sake, for her sake, why they are not understanding, and you become stronger and stronger in your eye.
Now, I suppose all of that is quite a pretty complete picture, right, about what's happening, what you described and what you... Then how does that relate to actual change within, you know, because the starting question was, not the starting question, I mean, we know our lives, we know there's fear in life, we more or less acknowledge there's always some kind of fear present in our life. Mm-hmm. And then the man on the screen says, can all fear come to an end? Is that an irrelevant question? Do we say, well, you know, no, fear can never come to an end? Or is it, and if so, if it is possible, so we have the understanding, but how does it relate to actual change in life? Because that's what we're facing. I mean, we don't want, we're not into the business of writing books, so how can we make this relevant to our day-to-day life?
Yes, when there's a deep insight, when one sees the whole structure, it gets washed away, I believe. Or I think.
Yeah, I can go along with that, but then that would still, then the word if is too complicated. Yeah. If there's insight, if there's kundalini, if there's a sunny day, so
then how would you? How would you express?
No, but that's the question. That
Yes.
I'm trying to.
One has to do it. I think one can sit here and talk about it and say if this and if that, but do it.
And it is. And it is.
What's the
Dissolve that fear. Not as an idea, but seeing all that we've talked about, understanding all that we've talked about. Go into it in daily life and see if it comes to an end. Do it.
When you say daily life, what do you mean? Do you mean a particular example of fear?
No.
It's all fear, as you just said. Fear is fear. Any fear is related to the general concept of fear.
Your question is, how does it affect change?
No, we've done an exploration, and I mean the exploration, there seems to be kind of clarity that there's fear is the fabric of our day-to-day life. And there seems to be always some fear present. We can make a distinction between psychological and physical, but we don't necessarily have to make that distinction. Fear as, I think what was said was like, fear as survival. The word survival came up, so there seemed to be quite a clear understanding of what fear is and how fear impacts our life. But then you have the question, or the question has been put, we can ignore the question also, that's also a strategy. Can all fear come to an end? I mean, and which is of course equal to the question, can human suffering end? Now, so and that's more like, Amunja said, okay, do it, but that is too abstract because there's nothing I can do, you know what I mean?
Just to point out.
No, I don't mean do it, let it happen.
No, I'm just trying to say that,
Yes.
apparently it is.
The funny part of that is that at some point, it probably wasn't this question, but he said something like, don't just say yeah.
Yeah. Don't you say yeah?
Don't just say yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
yes.
like yes.
No,
Don't just say yeah.
Don't you say yeah?
Don't just say yeah.
Don't just say But it also, the no part is part of that too. I mean, so you say you've got a choice, yes or no. It's a yes or no. Is it a yes or no question? I don't think it's a yes or no question. I think he's saying there's an urgency there to see how human lives are being affected, and there's an urgency to change. And you have to have the urgency.
Yes, so yeah, let me maybe fold it into that. What I was trying to say is that there's very little that we can consciously do. Like to do it is somehow flawed because
no, it's just
okay, I can make a strategy, I can apply it, and then do, okay, I'm going to be free of fear. That means that every time a fear comes up, I'm going to say chocolate. And then, you know, then I can, that's
well, Krishna, you also said, do it. Do it, sir. Do it.
No, I'm just trying, but because I think that is important, because if we still keep thinking in the realm of conscious action, willpower, I'm going to decide on a strategy and then I'm going to implement that, and I'm going to be frustrated if the implementation doesn't work. So that we're not talking about that aspect, about conscious action or any action put forward through willpower, or any action that is put pressure on ourselves to change in one direction or the other. It's not in that realm. That's still the realm.
I agree with that. Yes.
Now,
The part that you suggested earlier was that we might just accept fear. And is that...
That's the other extreme.
But what is that? Is that really like not a way to do it, or is that a possibility of just accepting it?
But that seems to be the status quo currently.
The status quo.
status quo, state of status.
Let me ask the question, is this question, can fear come to an end? Is this the same question as can thought come to an end? Because thought seems to be required for fear, and so thought is probably the more general thing. Is it the same question?
I feel that they're very similar, at least, yeah.
Yeah.
I think suffering, fear, thought, they seem to be the same
Right.
subset, yeah.
And surely if thought came to an end, fear would.
That's what I was saying when I said, physical fear to psychological fear. You did say that in animal kingdom, there is a little bit of thinking, but as the brain started becoming bigger and bigger, the thought has become bigger, larger and larger, and that created all this. That's a root cause for the fear.
What's the root cause?
Big brain.
Bigger brain.
Bigger brain, bigger thought.
Bigger thought.
Yeah. See, a cat, when you want to hurt her, she will try to escape from you. But if you close the doors, all the doors, and you try to hurt her, she will jump over you. That's a self-protection. Okay? Same thing in the animal kingdom, lion is there, lionesses are there. This lion is guarding all these lionesses. Another lion comes and attacks this lion. Between these two lions, one will survive or one will win and take over the herd. The other goes back. When it goes, it doesn't think, I got defeated. Let me come back and defeat. So that thought, that time is for them is limited. It's only to attack. Whosoever survives the fight. Whereas in psychological thing, it's not that. It's much more than that. So I was just saying from the physical fear came the psychological fear. Where is the root cause for it? Which you are also in a way saying that what can bring change. That's what I see it.
Yeah, I mean, there seem to be two extremes, right? One is that, one extreme we looked at is, okay, we're going to deliberately define a strategy and we're going to implement it. Yeah, every time there's fear, I'm going to say chocolate or something, whatever. I mean, saying something absurd, but there are many ways that you can, in self-help, you can find it. Or what Zach was saying is the other extreme, just accept fear. I'm just going to accept it in my life and I'm going to live with that. So these are the others. Or is there another option there? And what would that be?
I'd like to suggest that there's another possibility, and that is like if thought stops, then fear stops. So if we consider the question, is there a way that thought can come to an end in our daily lives except where it's needed? And Krishnamurti's answer is yes, it can if we understand the nature of thought. But that doesn't seem to come very easy, and so maybe something there. But what a large number of people do is meditate. And that is to say there's some pretty simple, straightforward ways that we can address the problem of thought continuing to crank on. And it's called meditation, So there's all these different formal meditation methods, but it's also possible to do the same thing without a lot of rigmarole. And essentially the simplest that it comes down to basically is paying attention to the breath. And in other words, counting the breath from 1 to 4, this is just a possibility. If you just do that for a while, and then pretty soon you don't have to count, you're just really kind of putting your attention on your breath, you'll see that thought will have stopped. Thought is the brain, it's like the brain is assigned this really simple task, count from 1 to 4. And instead of going blah, 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 it's doing this really simple thing. And then it really slows down, quiets down, and can be said to be virtually stopped. So that the problem of the question, can fear come to an end? Can thought come to an end? Here is one avenue in which that can be approached. And I would gotta say, millions of people around the world do this every day. The fact that Krishnamurti says any kind of practice is, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure we can just accept that Krishnamurti is right about that. I don't know what you all think.
Well, Krishnamurti also talks about meditation quite a bit as well. But he has his own approach to it.
I think he mostly just points out the danger of saying that meditation is the solution to all of this, as opposed to just simply meditate. Don't like having the expectations that it's going to cure all your fears. Right. So that's just, you can say that that's a possibility, but then if you cling to that, it will solve everything in your life, all these fears. That's a danger, because when is the day that happens? When is the day I achieve that point where I have no thoughts, I have no fear?
I think we can do simple meditation, paying attention to the breath, for instance, without having any expectations.
Right.
We can do that.
Yeah, I don't think that he negates that, or not negate, but I don't think that he says not that we can't meditate, but I think he's just pointing not to say, not to say that anything like yoga or meditation or even sitting quietly can be this sort of method that's solid.
Yeah. In other words, I think we have to accept that there are ways to really quiet the mind. And if that really quiets fear and a whole bunch of other problems, I think it's worth considering.
But Krishnamurti objects to that sort of methodical approach, like any method or recipe dulls the mind eventually. This is what he's warned against time and again, right? So I mean, perhaps what is happening, I don't know, perhaps in that state what is happening is that the mind is just going to sleep, perhaps to some extent, and therefore you don't feel the fear. Because it's sort of in a sleepy sort of state.
Well, it's
with the breathing, like 1, 2, 3, 4 counting, like it's a technique which can perhaps dull the mind, and maybe could be a dullness, therefore you don't feel any fear.
In other words, counting the breath and then paying attention to the breath can dull the mind, you think?
Because it's a very mechanical, like a recipe approach to meditation, and any mechanical repetition of a method causes dullness.
That's according to Krishnamurti, but that's not according to me.
Without judging whether it may do that, I think, isn't it possible that this practice could be beneficial in many ways? But when you look at the world and you say, well, all these people are doing this, and maybe they benefit from it, but we still have the same messy world.
Yeah.
So it seems that something else is required.
Could be. Yeah. It could be. But maybe this simple breathing and being quiet, and maybe even going so far as to take a certain time of the day when you do your physical exercise, you do that, or maybe whatever suits you. A lot of people do yoga to keep the body flexible. It's a mechanical kind of thing, there's a program there. And you know what? It works.
But it's also based on the assumption, I'm just going to point this out just to see if it has any meaning at all. Your first assumption was that if all thought ends, then all fear ends. Is it possible for all fear to end, but that thought continues as it does?
Yeah, that's a question.
Then it would be pointless to meditate because...
No. It's very beneficial to meditate. Maybe. We're not goal oriented here, we're not not trying to do anything.
That's true. But when one suggests that meditation as a practice can work, then it becomes this thing that we have to do each day, and this practice that we have to do. Rather than maybe, all fear can end right now.
Okay.
As a possibility.
I think I'm pointing out a possibility, you know, an alternative to living with it, or...
But it sounds like it's obvious that any real change that would come, has to have the component of understanding of it. And so and the question is, how is that coming into being, right? Understanding of who I am as a person. And fear is related to that. And I would be inclined to look at, and what we're also saying, I mean, we're in the exploration that we're saying, okay, there seems to be clearly a place to take time, to maybe even schedule time where you sit quietly, as long as you don't create a new level of expectations, a new carrot. I'm going to slow down my breath, and then I'm going to feel this amazing feeling of oneness with the universe. Because then we just get trapped in something else.
Yeah, but wait. I think Krishnamurti makes the mistake of saying that it dulls the mind, that it's mechanical, that it will, make you stupid. But actually, it needn't do that, and I don't think, and we're not trying to slow the breath down. All we're doing is breathing and paying attention to our breath. That's something we would do anyway, is breathe. We can't have a problem with breathing, surely. And so just to notice your breath, like I say, something that you're not trying to control it, you're not trying to change it in any way, you're not taking any special posture, you don't have any special expectations. What is the problem?
I understand what you're saying. You're saying, well, I really have experienced beneficial effects from doing that exercise. So that's what you're expressing, right?
That I haven't?
That you have experienced beneficial aspects from doing this exercise.
I think so. I think what seems to happen is that thought slows down to a stop. But everything else is alive, You're noticing your breath, but also you're noticing everything else. You can hear for all of a sudden. Whereas when you're walking along a trail or something and you're going yada 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 yada, you're not really awake to what's around you. But if you're not thinking, you are awake. You see, you smell, and you hear in a way that you normally would not do.
But you're a heretic now, because this is Krishnamurti. You're a heretic, I said, heretic. Because you're saying something against Krishnamurti. I'm just joking. It's just a joke.
No, I think if you can bring this in the light of, that's what you can come up with as a solution. But I think we're having a fast challenge here in front of us. What will bring an end to human suffering, right? And I think we have to keep the exploration open. At the moment, I would say, any of us would say, or we all would say, yes, you're right. Okay, finished. And somehow it doesn't sit well, because